Control your screaming brat, or I'll have security remove you both from this aircraft immediately. The sharp crack of flesh meeting flesh echoed through the first-class cabin. Flight attendant Rebecca Wilson's palm had just struck Gabrielle Jackson's cheek as she cradled her 6-month-old daughter, Amara, against her chest. The baby's cries intensified from the sudden violence. Passengers in nearby seats pulled out phones recording what they assumed was justified discipline of an unruly traveler. Finally, someone with backbone, an elderly woman in pearls, whispered approvingly. Gabby's cheek burned red hot, the sting radiating across her face. Her stomach tightened with that familiar knot, the one she'd felt countless times before, when reduced to nothing but her skin color. Yet her dark eyes remained steady, defiant, even as she adjusted baby Amara's blanket with trembling hands. Her boarding pass lay visible in her lap. Mrs. G. Jackson, with a special Platinum Elite status code that Wilson had deliberately ignored. The cabin fell silent, except for Amara's soft whimpering and the click of recording phones. Have you ever been judged as a bad parent in public before anyone asked if you needed help? Rebecca straightened her navy uniform, her silver wings catching the cabin lights as she played to her audience. The slap had energized her 15 years of contained frustration at difficult passengers finally finding release. Finally a chance to demonstrate real authority to the first-class passengers who paid premium prices. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption, Rebecca announced loudly enough for the entire cabin to hear. Some people simply don't understand appropriate travel etiquette. Murmurs of approval rippled through the cabin. A businessman in an expensive suit nodded toward Gabby. Thank God someone's maintaining standards. These people always think they can do whatever they want. Before we dive deeper into this shocking moment, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments and hit subscribe if you believe every family deserves dignity. What happens next will change everything about how we view accountability in the skies. Don't forget to like this video if you've ever witnessed injustice and wished someone would stand up to it. Inside, Gabby was a storm of emotions, humiliation burning her cheeks, fury tightening her jaw, fear for her daughter's safety. But outwardly, she remained composed, gently bouncing Amara to calm her cries. The baby's tiny fist wrapped around her mother's finger, a gesture that should have melted hearts, but only seemed to irritate the watching passengers more. Rebecca pulled out her radio, speaking with theatrical authority. Captain Hernandez, we have a code yellow in first class. Disruptive passenger with infant refusing to comply with crew instructions. The radio crackled back. Copy that, Rebecca. How do you want to proceed? I'm recommending immediate removal before departure. She's already delayed us 15 minutes with this tantrum. Gabby glanced at her phone. The screen showed 15 minutes until departure, and below that a text notification. Executive merger announcement scheduled for 2 p.m. EST. All systems ready. She tucked the phone away before Rebecca could read the message clearly. The pressurized cabin air felt suddenly thin in Gabby's lungs. The confined space of first class had transformed into an arena with her and Amara at its center. The hum of the idle engines, the clink of pre-departure drinks, the whispered judgments, all of it pressed in on her like physical weight. Excuse me, Gabby said quietly, her voice barely audible over the cabin noise. My ticket shows seat 3A. I paid for first-class service, and I'd appreciate. Rebecca cut her off with a harsh laugh. Honey, I don't care what scam you pulled to get that ticket. People like you always try to upgrade illegally. I know every trick in the book. A young Hispanic woman across the aisle, maybe college-aged, held up her phone filming a TikTok. Y'all, this is insane. This flight attendant just slapped a mom with a baby. I can't even. Her viewer count was climbing. 500. 847. 233. But the comments weren't supporting Gabby. They were harsh, judgmental. Finally, someone disciplining bad parents. Why can't people control their kids on flights? That mom looks entitled. AF. Flight attendant is a hero. Rebecca noticed the filming and played up her role. Ma'am, If you can't manage your child appropriately, I have every right to request your removal from this aircraft. Horizon Airways policy is very clear about disruptive passengers. Gabby opened her carry-on bag to retrieve baby formula. As she did, a flash of platinum caught the light. A Horizon Airways executive card tucked between diapers and bottles. The card was quickly hidden again, but something about its design seemed different from standard frequent flyer cards. Her phone buzzed again. This time the caller ID was visible to nearby passengers' Horizon Airways executive office. She declined the call. "Not yet," she whispered to herself so softly no one could hear. Timing is everything. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "Who exactly do you think you're calling? Your baby daddy isn't going to save you from federal aviation regulations." The slur hit like a second slap. Several passengers chuckled. The businessman with the expensive suit, his name tag reading, Philip Andrews, regional director, spoke up. "Miss, you're holding up 180 passengers with this drama. Some of us have important business to attend to." The college student's TikTok was gaining viewers rapidly. She adjusted her angle to capture both Rebecca's authority and Gabby's composure. "This is getting intense. Already at 2,000 viewers. Should I keep filming?" Comments flooded her screen with enthusiastic yes responses. "If you're just joining, like and share this stream." "This is wild." Across the aisle, the elderly Hispanic woman, Carmen Delgado, according to her designer luggage tag, nodded approvingly at Rebecca. "In my day, mothers knew how to control their children. This generation thinks rules don't apply to them." Gabby checked her watch. A simple black timepiece, nothing flashy, but if someone looked closely, they might notice the engraving on the back. "To my brilliant wife, Gabby, your vision changed the world. Love, Dominic." Her throat tightened as she swallowed back words that would only escalate the situation. In her mind flashed the training she and Dominic had discussed: remain calm, document everything, let the situation fully reveal itself. Rebecca was building to her crescendo. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one final time to gather your belongings and deplane voluntarily. If you refuse, I'll have federal air marshals escort you off this aircraft." The TikTok live stream hit 3,000 viewers. Comments flooded in faster than the college student could read them, but buried among the harsh judgment were a few different voices. "Something's not right here. Why is the mom so calm? That lady seems way too composed. Flight attendant is way too aggressive." A white businessman near the window opened his laptop and began typing rapidly on an aviation industry forum. His profile showed Martin Reynolds, senior aviation analyst, 25 years industry experience. His post was titled, "Witnessing Discrimination in Real Time, Horizon Flight 583. Within minutes, industry insiders were following the developing story. Rebecca pulled out her radio again. "Captain Passenger is non-compliant. Requesting immediate ground security assistance." "Copy. Ground crew is standing by." Gabby spoke for the second time, her voice steady despite the public humiliation. "Ma'am, I understand you're following what you believe are protocols, but I'd suggest verifying my passenger status before taking irreversible action." "Irreversible?" Rebecca's voice rose with incredulity. "Lady, the only thing irreversible here is your behavior. You think because you bought an expensive outfit and got your hands on a first-class ticket, somehow you can disrupt an entire flight." The elderly woman leaned forward. "Young lady, in my day, parents knew how to travel with children properly. This display is absolutely shameful." More phones appeared. The incident was being documented from multiple angles. Facebook live streams started. Instagram stories began uploading. The hashtag flight drama was beginning to trend locally, but Gabby remained unnaturally calm. She wasn't arguing, wasn't raising her voice, wasn't making demands. Her composure was almost unsettling, like someone who knew something the rest of the cabin didn't. Baby Amara had finally quieted, seemingly responding to her mother's steady heartbeat. The infant's dark eyes looked around the cabin with the innocent curiosity that should have charmed fellow passengers. Instead, it seemed to irritate them more. 15 minutes, Rebecca announced with finality. "Security will be here in 15 minutes, and this situation will be resolved one way or another. Gabby kissed Amara's forehead gently and whispered something too quiet for the recording phones to capture. But her eyes held a knowledge that made the smartest observers suddenly uncomfortable. Something was about to change. Rebecca Wilson hadn't always been this way. At 45, the 15-year Horizon Airways veteran had once loved her job. That changed after 9/11, when security protocols tightened and her sense of authority grew. Her breaking point came 3 years ago when a complaint from a wealthy passenger nearly cost her job. Since then, she'd developed a hardened approach to problem passengers, particularly those who didn't match her mental image of first-class clientele. "Some passengers need to learn their place," she muttered to a younger flight attendant who looked uncomfortable with the confrontation. "I've seen her type before gets an upgrade and thinks she owns the plane." Rebecca had received 3 passenger complaints in the past year alone, all from travelers of color, all quietly addressed with sensitivity training that she dismissed as woke nonsense. Today, she wore her authority like armor, her silver wings gleaming as she stood over Gabby, enjoying the rush of power. Gabby Jackson hadn't always been married to the CEO of Horizon Airways. At 34, she'd built her own success as an architectural engineer, specializing in sustainable terminal design work that had initially brought her into Dominic's orbit 3 years ago. Her simple cashmere sweater and designer jeans weren't flashy, but they were quality chosen for comfort during travel with an infant, not to impress anyone. The diaper bag at her feet was expensive, but practical, containing everything a careful mother would need for her 6-month-old during a 3-hour flight. Inside, Gabby's heart raced. But years of being the only black woman in corporate boardrooms had taught her the power of composed dignity. Each moment of this confrontation was sickeningly familiar. The automatic assumption she didn't belong, the dismissal of her explanations, the public humiliation designed to put her in her place. Martin Reynolds, the 38-year-old aviation blogger typing frantically on his laptop, had flown over 200,000 miles annually for the past decade. His industry-leading blog, Sky Rights, had exposed dozens of cases of airline discrimination. Something about Gabby's calm demeanor struck him as unusual. Most passengers being publicly humiliated showed either anger or distress. She showed neither, just patient determination, like someone conducting an inspection. "The passenger appears completely composed, despite extraordinary provocation," he typed. "This doesn't fit the airline's narrative of disruption." Her body language suggests someone documenting rather than reacting. Martin's practiced eye noticed other details. The quality of Gabby's watch, her articulate responses, the deliberate way she declined incoming calls rather than silencing her phone. His 25 years in aviation had taught him to recognize power, even when it wasn't flaunting itself. The Hispanic college student, Sofia Alvarez, was on her way home from a journalism internship. Her TikTok following was modest, mostly friends and fellow students, but the live drama unfolding was attracting viewers by the hundreds. She hesitated briefly, wondering if she should be filming a mother in distress, but something told her this documentation mattered. "The mom hasn't raised her voice once," she whispered to her followers. "The baby's calm now, but the flight attendant is still escalating. Something feels off about this whole situation." Sophia's journalistic instincts. The reason she'd earned that prestigious internship despite being only 21 told her this wasn't just routine airline drama. Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text from Captain Hernandez. "Confirm passenger violation before removal." She ignored it, already committed to her course of action. The thrill of asserting authority over a passenger who didn't match her vision of first-class propriety was too satisfying to abandon. "People who don't belong in first class always cause problems," she announced loudly enough for Gabby to hear. "Economy is designed for families with children." The implication was clear and racist. Several passengers nodded in agreement, while others looked uncomfortable, but remained silent. The social hierarchy of air travel was being enforced, and few were willing to challenge it. Gabby's phone buzzed again. Executive office. Again, she declined the call. Who keeps calling you? Rebecca demanded, looming over Gabby. Your baby daddy can't override federal aviation law from the ground. The insult drew approving chuckles from nearby passengers. Philip Andrews raised his phone higher, ensuring he captured Rebecca's authority in action. Gabby didn't respond to the provocation. Instead, she gently wiped a bit of drool from Amara's chin, maintaining the careful dignity that was increasingly unsettling to the more observant passengers. Years of corporate meetings had taught her that sometimes silence was the most powerful response. Martin Reynolds continued typing. Flight attendant making explicitly racist comments referring to baby daddy, while passenger remains completely professional. Watching power dynamics unfold in real time. This passenger's composure suggests someone familiar with systemic discrimination and how to document it effectively. His aviation forum post was gaining traction. 47 comments already, mostly from industry professionals, expressing concern about the escalation. 15 minutes until mandatory departure, announced the captain over the intercom, unaware of the drama unfolding in first class. Rebecca straightened her uniform, playing to the cameras now. You have 15 minutes to decide leave voluntarily or be removed by security. Captain Lawrence Hernandez's voice crackled over the intercom. Flight crew, prepare for final boarding completion. Rebecca seized the moment. Captain, request your presence in first class. Passenger removal situation escalating. Gabby checked her watch again. 14 minutes until departure. She adjusted Amara in her arms, the baby now contentedly playing with the collar of her mother's sweater. The stark contrast between the disruptive narrative and the peaceful reality was becoming increasingly obvious to the more observant passengers. For a brief moment, Gabby's mind flashed back to a restaurant in Chicago 15 years ago. She was 19, dressed in her best outfit for a scholarship celebration dinner. The maitre d' had blocked her entrance. This establishment is for reservations only. Perhaps you're looking for the diner down the street. Her throat had closed up with humiliation as white diners streamed past without question. I have a reservation, she'd managed to say, showing the confirmation on her phone. The maitre d' had barely glanced at it. That must be a mistake. This isn't the right atmosphere for you. 2 security guards had materialized beside her. Her professor, waiting inside, never saw what happened. She'd walked 3 blocks in the rain before collapsing on a bench, tears mixing with raindrops. That night, she'd made a promise to herself someday she would change how people like her were treated in spaces that weren't designed with them in mind. That vow had carried her through architectural school, through corporate boardrooms, through marriage to Dominic, and now to this moment. She wouldn't raise her voice. She wouldn't show the anger that Rebecca was clearly trying to provoke. She would document, witness, and change the system. The memory hardened her resolve even as the pain of that long-ago humiliation merged with the sting still radiating across her cheek. Martin Reynolds's forum post had attracted the attention of several Horizon Airways employees who were off-duty, but monitoring industry chatter. His subscriber count was climbing as aviation professionals recognized the potential crisis unfolding. Passenger being threatened with removal appears to have platinum status visible on boarding pass. Standard protocol requires verification before escalation. This is breaking with multiple airline policies, including FAR 121.580 and Horizon's own passenger management directives. The TikTok live stream had reached 7,000 viewers. Comments were evolving as the situation continued. Wait, that baby isn't even crying anymore. Is the flight attendant making this about race? Someone needs to check that passenger's actual status. If you're just joining us, like and share. This is getting crazy. Rebecca's radio crackled. This is Captain Hernandez. On my way to assess. She smiled triumphantly at Gabby. The captain will make the final decision, but trust me, he always backs his crew. We've worked together for years. Gabby nodded calmly. I look forward to meeting him. Something in her tone, the complete lack of anxiety, made Rebecca pause briefly before doubling down. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced to the cabin, we apologize for the delay. We're dealing with an uncooperative passenger Who refuses to acknowledge proper child management protocols in first class? Philip Andrews nodded emphatically. Some people think money buys them the right to ruin everyone else's experience. Gabby finally spoke, her voice clear, but not raised. My daughter has been quiet for the past 5 minutes. What specific protocol am I violating? The simple question hung in the air. Rebecca flushed. Your disrespectful attitude is the violation. Questioning crew member authority is grounds for removal. Sophia's TikTok viewers were catching the inconsistency. The baby is literally sleeping now. This is insane. The flight attendant is making stuff up. Someone tag Horizon Airways. They need to see this. Don't forget to like. If you agree, this is outrageous treatment. 13 minutes until mandatory departure. Carmen Delgado, the elderly woman, seemed to notice the discrepancy between accusation and reality. Her certainty wavered, but she'd already publicly aligned herself with Rebecca's authority. Well, the child may be quiet now, but clearly there was a disturbance earlier. Gabby's phone buzzed a third time. Executive office. Again she declined. Rebecca noticed. If you're calling for help, don't bother. This aircraft is under federal jurisdiction, and the captain's authority is absolute. Martin Reynolds's post had gained the attention of someone identified only as Horizon's senior management, who commented, requesting flight number and passenger details. This requires immediate review. For a moment, Gabby's composure nearly cracked. This was taking longer than expected. What if Dominic wasn't alerted in time? What if the security officers physically removed her and Amara before the truth could be revealed? The thought of her daughter witnessing her mother being forcibly dragged from her rightful seat made her stomach clench. But she maintained her outward calm. Too much was at stake. The cabin atmosphere was shifting as the obvious disconnect between Rebecca's claims and the visible reality became impossible to ignore. A mother sitting quietly with a peaceful baby was being treated like a security threat, and the justifications were growing thinner by the minute. 12 minutes to departure announced an automated system over the intercom. Gabby remained perfectly still, her eyes never leaving Rebecca's face, waiting for what she knew would come next. Captain Lawrence Hernandez strode through the first-class cabin, his gold stripes catching the overhead lights. His 22 years of commercial aviation experience had taught him to project absolute authority in passenger conflicts. What's the situation here? Rebecca Hernandez's voice carried the weight of Federal Aviation Command. Rebecca straightened, energized by her captain's arrival. Sir, this passenger has been disruptive since boarding. Screaming child refusing crew instructions, and now she's being argumentative about deplaning. Hernandez studied Gabby with practiced assessment. Young black mother designer diaper bag first-class seat, but his assumptions aligned with Rebecca's narrative. In his 22 years of flying, he'd developed what he considered an instinct for trouble. 8 passenger removals last year alone had reinforced his trust in his gut feelings, feelings that rarely questioned his flight attendants. Ma'am, I'm Captain Hernandez. Federal aviation regulations require passenger compliance with crew instructions. The TikTok live stream exploded past 10,000 viewers. Sophia whispered breathlessly to her audience. The captain is here now. This is getting serious. Don't forget to like and share if you think this mother deserves better. Comments poured in. She's about to get arrested. Captain looks mad. Bye, Felicia. Hope they ban her from flying. Gabby adjusted baby Amara in her arms, checking her phone discreetly. 11 minutes until departure deadline. 11 minutes until what Hernandez demanded his patience already thin. Ma'am, whatever schedule you think you're keeping, it doesn't override federal aviation safety protocols. From the galley area, 2 security officers emerged. Their presence escalated the situation from passenger service issue to potential security threat. Security Officer James Rodriguez approached cautiously. Something about this situation felt off to him after 15 years of aviation security. The disruptive passenger was sitting calmly with a sleeping baby, not matching any threat profile he'd been trained to recognize. Captain, what's the nature of the disturbance? Passenger non-compliance, Hernandez replied curtly, refusing to deplane after crew assessment of disruptive behavior. For a brief moment, Gabby's mind flashed to another memory sitting with Dominic in their home office 6 months ago, planning this very scenario. "We need to understand how passengers are actually treated," Dominic had said, pacing the room. "Not what the policy says, but what happens in practice." "You want me to travel undercover?" Gabby had asked, understanding immediately. "Not just travel document. We need evidence of how crew members interact with passengers who don't fit their mental image of first class." She'd nodded slowly. "No executive privileges, no special treatment. Just me traveling as myself to see what happens." Neither of them had anticipated physical assault that was never part of the plan. But now the stakes were even higher, the evidence even more damning. Martin Reynolds, still typing on the aviation forum, paused to capture photos. His post was gaining traction among industry professionals. 200 shares, 847 comments growing by the minute. Rebecca sensed her moment of triumph approaching. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced over the cabin intercom, "we apologize for the delay caused by an uncooperative passenger. We expect to resolve this situation momentarily." The announcement triggered a wave of passenger frustration. Voices rose throughout the cabin. "Just throw her off already. Some people have no consideration. I have a connection to make. This is ridiculous." The TikTok viewer count hit 12,000. Local news alerts pinged on phones across Dallas. Viral incident unfolding on Horizon Airways flight. Gabby remained seated. Baby Amara now calm and curious about the surrounding commotion. Her composure was becoming almost eerie, like someone waiting for a predetermined moment. Security officer Elaine Foster flanked Gabby's other side. "Ma'am, we need you to gather your belongings and come with us voluntarily. I need exactly 5 more minutes to resolve this situation," Gabby said quietly. Hernandez scoffed. "You need 0 minutes. This is a federal aircraft under my command and you're creating a safety hazard." Carmen Delgado spoke loudly enough for the cameras. "Captain, I've been flying for 60 years. This kind of entitled behavior is exactly what's wrong with air travel today." Multiple passengers nodded agreement. The narrative was set. Disruptive mother versus professional crew maintaining safety standards. But Martin Reynolds noticed something others missed. His industry experience recognized subtle signs that didn't fit the narrative. He typed furiously. "Passenger shows 0 signs of actual distress. Too calm. Too controlled. Something else happening here." Passenger deliberately declining calls from Horizon Executive Office, suggesting this might be planned documentation rather than random incident. Gabby's phone buzzed insistently. The caller ID flashed briefly. Horizon Corporate Emergency Line. She declined the call again. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "Who keeps calling you? Your baby daddy can't override federal aviation law from the ground." The insult drew approving chuckles from nearby passengers. Philip Andrews raised his phone higher, ensuring he captured the confrontation. 10 minutes until mandatory departure. Hernandez announced, checking his watch. "Ground security is boarding now." Through the aircraft windows, passengers could see airport security vehicles surrounding the plane. Emergency lights flashed. The situation had escalated beyond simple passenger removal. The TikTok live stream reached 15,000 viewers. Flight incident was trending regionally. Screenshots spread across Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, showing the confrontation from multiple angles. For a moment, real fear flashed through Gabby's eyes. The situation was accelerating faster than anticipated. What if security removed her before Dominic could intervene? What if Amara was traumatized by the experience? She hadn't anticipated this level of escalation, and for the first time, her perfect composure threatened to crack. Ground security officers boarded through the forward galley, their equipment jingling ominously. Restraints, radios, cameras, everything needed for forcible passenger removal. "Ma'am," the lead security officer announced by order of the flight captain and federal security, "you're being removed from this aircraft. Please comply voluntarily." Gabby looked around the cabin, slowly taking in the recording phones. The hostile faces, the overwhelming authority arrayed against her. Baby Amara gurgled softly, reaching toward the shiny security badge. 5 minutes, she said quietly. Hernandez's face flushed with anger. "You have 0 minutes. Officers, please escort this passenger and her child from the aircraft immediately." The security team moved closer. Passengers leaned forward, phones ready to capture the dramatic removal. The TikTok viewer count hit 18,000, but something in Gabby's eyes made the smartest observers pause. She wasn't panicking, wasn't pleading, wasn't preparing to resist. She was waiting. Officer Rodriguez hesitated. Something about this didn't feel right. In 15 years of aviation security, he'd removed dozens of truly disruptive passengers, drunk, belligerent, threatening. This calm mother with a sleeping baby matched none of those profiles. "Ma'am, if you have some kind of legitimate concern or documentation, now would be the time to—" Hernandez cut him off sharply. "We don't negotiate with disruptive passengers. Remove her now." The cabin air felt electric with tension. The overhead reading lights created harsh shadows across faces twisted with judgment. The confined space amplified every word, every gasp, every muttered approval. Rebecca stepped forward triumphantly. "This is exactly why we have security protocols. Some people think they can manipulate situations with fake emergencies and social media theater." The cabin erupted in approval. Passengers applauded Rebecca's firm stance. Comments on the live stream celebrated the crew's professionalism. Gabby kissed baby Amara's forehead and whispered something inaudible. Then she reached for her phone with deliberate calm. 4 minutes, she said. "Time's up," Hernandez declared. Officers proceed with removal. As security moved to physically restrain her, Gabby pressed a single contact in her phone and activated the speaker. The call connected immediately. "Hi, love," she said softly into the phone. "I'm having some trouble on your airline." The voice that answered made Captain Hernandez's blood freeze in his veins. "Which aircraft, sweetheart? I'll handle this personally." Hernandez recognized that voice immediately. Every Horizon Airways captain knew that voice. It belonged to the man who signed their paychecks. Gabby's response was gentle, almost conversational. "Flight 583 first class. The crew is being creative with customer service." The phone speaker crackled with barely controlled fury. "I'm Dominic Jackson, Chief Executive Officer and majority shareholder of Horizon Airways. Everyone on that aircraft needs to step back from my wife immediately." The cabin fell silent, except for baby Amara's soft cooing and the distant hum of airport ground equipment. Rebecca's face went white as understanding crashed down like a tidal wave. Hernandez staggered backward, his authority crumbling in real time. The TikTok live stream exploded past 20,000 viewers as comments went absolutely insane. Plot twist. She's the CEO's wife. They're so fired. Holy like and share this now. This is going viral. Security officers stepped away from Gabby like she'd become radioactive. Dominic Jackson's voice continued through the speaker, ice cold and terrifying. "Captain Hernandez. Miss Wilson. I'll be reviewing this incident personally. And I do mean personally." Gabby remained perfectly calm, gently rocking baby Amara, as 180 passengers and crew members stared in shock. 3 minutes until departure, honey," she said sweetly into the phone. "Cancel the departure," Dominic replied. "We have bigger problems to address first." The woman they tried to remove owned the airline, and everyone had just watched it happen live. The silence in the cabin was suffocating. Every phone was raised now, not just recording but live streaming to platforms across the internet. What had started as a routine problem, passenger removal, had transformed into corporate theater unlike anything the aviation industry had ever witnessed. Rebecca found her voice first, though it trembled. "Mr. Jackson, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. We were following standard protocols for passenger disruption." Standard protocols. Dominic's voice cut like steel. "Ms. Wilson, my wife was sitting quietly with our infant daughter. What specific regulation justified physically assaulting her?" Rebecca's mouth opened and closed without sound. There was no protocol that authorized slapping a passenger ever. Hernandez attempted damage control. "Sir, if we could discuss this privately." "Privately?" Dominic laughed coldly. "Captain, there are currently 22,000 people watching this conversation live. The time for privacy ended when your crew decided to assault my wife in front of an audience." Martin Reynolds updated his aviation blog in real time, breaking Horizon Airways crew assaults. CEO's wife on live stream. Multiple federal violations documented. Industry-wide implications unfolding. Sophia's TikTok followers had quadrupled in the past minute. Her hands trembled as she kept filming. Y'all, this is the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed. The CEO's wife just got slapped by his own employee. If you think this is wild, hit that like button and share. Philip Andrews, who'd been vocally supporting Rebecca moments earlier, sank into his seat frantically trying to delete his social media posts. But screenshots had already been captured and shared thousands of times. Carmen Delgado clutched her pearls. Her previous comments about entitled behavior suddenly returning to haunt her. Officer Rodriguez spoke carefully. "Mr. Jackson, sir, we were responding to crew reports. We followed standard protocol for disruptive passenger situations. Standard protocol for what Dominic demanded. For a mother traveling alone with an infant. For a passenger who never raised her voice, never made demands, never resisted crew instructions." The marshals had no answer because there was no justifiable answer. Gabby finally spoke to the cabin directly, her voice clear, but not raised. For everyone watching this, remember that assumptions can destroy lives. Today, nearly 25,000 people witnessed what happens when prejudice meets accountability. Sophia could barely breathe. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen. The CEO's wife just got assaulted by his own employees on live TV. Dominic's voice carried final authority. Flight 583 will remain grounded until every crew member involved in this incident is removed from the aircraft. Ms. Wilson and Captain Hernandez, you're suspended immediately pending full investigation. Rebecca finally broke, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Mr. Jackson. I have a family, a mortgage. This job is everything to me." "You made a choice," Gabby corrected gently. "Choices have consequences. Today, those consequences are very public." The video call revealed more executives entering what appeared to be a boardroom, legal counsel, PR specialists, HR directors. The full weight of corporate power was mobilizing in response to one viral moment of discrimination. Hernandez stood frozen gold stripes, suddenly feeling like lead weights on his shoulders. 22 years of career achievement unraveling in minutes. 2 minutes, Gabby said quietly, checking her watch. The security officers backed away from Gabby, their training suddenly insufficient for the corporate earthquake they'd stumbled into. Officer Rodriguez spoke into his radio, his voice tight with tension. "Command situation update on Flight 583. Stand down security response. Repeat, stand down. Corporate intervention in progress." Dominic Jackson's voice continued through the phone speaker. "I'm en route to the airport now. ETA 20 minutes. In the meantime, here's what happens next." The TikTok live stream had reached 30,000 viewers. National news outlets were breaking into regular programming. #Horizon Scandal was trending nationally alongside #Flight Attendant Slap. Rebecca collapsed into an empty seat, her uniform suddenly feeling like a costume rather than authority. Captain Hernandez remained standing, though his posture had lost all its command. "Mr. Jackson," he attempted once more. "I was responding to crew reports of passenger disruption. Was my wife disrupting the flight when your employee slapped her?" Captain Dominic interrupted, his voice dangerously calm. "I didn't personally witness. Fortunately, 30,000 people did witness it," Dominic cut in. "Along with our onboard security cameras and multiple passenger recordings. The revelation that everything had been captured from multiple angles hit the crew like physical blows. Federal aviation regulations required all incidents to be recorded, but they'd forgotten about the permanent record." Gabby's mind flashed back to another incident 3 years earlier. She'd been traveling with Dominic before they were married when he proposed a radical idea over dinner. "I want to transform how airlines treat passengers," he'd said. "Not just policy changes on paper, but real accountability. I'm thinking of buying Horizon Airways not just as a business investment, but as a cultural reset." "How would you ensure real change?" she'd asked, intrigued. His answer had been simple. "We'll test the system ourselves. No special treatment, no executive privileges. We'll travel like regular passengers and document everything." Gabby had added, "And if we find discrimination, we'll have evidence no one can deny." Dominic had finished. "And we'll create consequences no one can ignore." That conversation had led to today, a deliberate test of how Horizon treated passengers who didn't look the part of first class. The results were even worse than they'd expected. Martin Reynolds's aviation blog had crashed from traffic volume. His Twitter updates were being retweeted by industry leaders and civil rights organizations. The story was escaping the confines of the aircraft, spreading across networks, building momentum by the second. Officer Foster spoke quietly to her partner. "We need to document everything. This is going to federal review." Rodriguez nodded grimly. Career-defining moment, and not in a good way. Sophia kept filming, her journalistic instincts overwhelming her nervousness. For those just joining, Horizon Airways flight attendant slapped the CEO's wife who was traveling with their baby. Now the CEO is on the phone, and everyone who touched her is about to lose their jobs. Don't forget to like and share this historic moment. Comments streamed in faster than could be read. This is history happening live. I've never seen accountability this public. That baby is so calm while everyone else is freaking out. CEO, wife, is a queen. Look at that composure. Gabby adjusted Amara's blanket. The baby had fallen asleep during the confrontation, the ultimate proof that there had never been a disruptive child situation. "This isn't about me," Gabby said to the cabin, her voice gentle but carrying. "This is about every mother who's been shamed, every passenger who's been profiled, and every employee who's been taught that some people deserve respect while others don't." Rebecca sobbed openly now. "I didn't know who you were." "And that's precisely the problem," Gabby replied. "Dignity shouldn't depend on who someone is. It should be the baseline for how we treat everyone." The power of the simple statement silenced further protests. In 15 words, she had articulated the core failure of the entire system. The phone speaker crackled as Dominic addressed the security officers. "Officers, Foster and Rodriguez, I want to be clear that we recognize you were responding to crew misinformation. Your actions will be reviewed separately from the crew's conduct." The distinction was important. Accountability with nuance, recognizing that systems failed at different levels. National news alerts were pinging on phones throughout the cabin. CEO's wife assaulted on Horizon Airways flight appeared on CNN. Airline discrimination captured live flashed on MSNBC. Fox News aired Aviation Authority. Challenged by executive spouse, Hernandez made one final attempt to regain control. "Passengers, please prepare for..." Captain Hernandez. Dominic interrupted. "You no longer have command of this aircraft. Executive authority has been transferred to First Officer Ramirez, effective immediately." The first officer's voice came over the intercom, nervous but professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is First Officer Ramirez. Flight 583 is delayed indefinitely. We apologize for the inconvenience and will provide updates as they become available." The full implications were setting in across the cabin. Passengers who had cheered Rebecca's authority minutes earlier now sat in uncomfortable silence, their complicity in the discrimination permanently documented on dozens of recordings. Gabby checked her watch again. 1 minute until scheduled departure. The timestamp would matter in the coming investigation, proof that the entire incident had unfolded during boarding, not during flight operations, changing the regulatory framework that would apply. Rebecca Wilson and Captain Hernandez stood side by side, united only by their shared professional catastrophe. As the initial shock rippled through the cabin, passenger reactions polarized dramatically. Philip Andrews, who had been Rebecca's most vocal supporter, was frantically texting his corporate PR team, aware that his face and comments were being shared across the internet. "Damage control needed. I'm caught on video supporting flight attendant who assaulted CEO's wife. How do I spin this?" Carmen Delgado, the elderly Hispanic woman who had approved of Rebecca's actions, now sat in stunned silence, her earlier comments about entitled behavior hanging in the air like an indictment. Martin Reynolds continued documenting everything for his aviation blog, his professional detachment giving way to genuine amazement. "In 20 years covering aviation incidents, I've never witnessed accountability unfold in real time like this. The power dynamic reversed in seconds, and the implications for industry practices are enormous." A young white woman, Amanda Whitfield, who had been silently watching from across the aisle, finally found her voice. I knew something was wrong, she said to no one in particular. I could see the baby wasn't even crying. Why didn't I say something? The question hung in the air, a perfect encapsulation of the bystander effect that had allowed the discrimination to escalate. Rebecca Wilson stood trembling near the galley, her career disintegrating before her eyes. She attempted one final defense. Mr. Jackson, airline protocol requires crew members to address disruptive. Was my 6-month-old daughter disruptive? Ms. Wilson. Dominic's voice cut through her explanation. Or was your assumption about who belongs in first class the actual disruption? The pointed question silenced her completely. Captain Hernandez tried a different approach. Sir, with all due respect, crew authority during boarding is essential for flight safety. We were following established. Captain Dominic interrupted. Do Horizon Airways established procedures include physically striking passengers? Please cite the specific regulation. Hernandez had no answer, because no such regulation existed. His authority, once absolute, had evaporated. Sophia's TikTok live stream had reached 40,000 viewers. News organizations were contacting her through the app, requesting permission to use her footage. The college journalism major was witnessing the biggest story of her career before she'd even graduated. Y'all, the viewer count is insane, she whispered to her audience. I started filming because it felt wrong to watch a mom get treated this way. I had no idea she was married to the CEO. Don't forget to like and share this unprecedented moment of accountability. New passengers continued boarding in economy class, unaware of the drama unfolding in first class. The contrast was stark. Routine travel procedures continuing while corporate careers imploded just yards away. A flight attendant from economy peeked into first class and quickly retreated, texting frantically to colleagues. Within minutes, crew chat groups across the Horizon Airways network were exploding with rumors, warnings, and real-time updates. Emergency CEO's wife was slapped by Rebecca Wilson on 583. CEO on phone. Everyone involved is finished. The message spread like wildfire through employee channels, reaching flight crews across the country. The industry-wide implications were setting in. This wasn't just about one crew or one flight. This was about systemic practices, suddenly exposed to public scrutiny. Officer Rodriguez spoke quietly to Gabby. Mrs. Jackson, would you like to file formal charges against the flight attendant? The physical contact constitutes assault under federal aviation law. Before Gabby could answer, Dominic's voice came through clear. That decision will be addressed through proper channels, Officer Rodriguez. For now, please ensure my wife and daughter's safety as this situation resolves. Martin Reynolds posted a new update. Horizon Airways CEO, demonstrating measured response, focusing on immediate safety rather than retribution. Strategic crisis management in real time. Throughout the evolving situation, baby Amara remained peacefully asleep in Gabby's arms. The innocent center of a corporate storm that would reshape airline practices across the industry. Gabby finally spoke directly to Rebecca, her voice calm but firm. Ms. Wilson, I want you to understand something important. This moment isn't about punishing you. It's about transforming a culture that made you believe your actions were acceptable. The insight was profound, looking beyond individual behavior to the systemic failures that enabled it. Rebecca couldn't meet her eyes. I was just following. You weren't following any protocol, Gabby corrected gently. You were following assumptions. There's a difference. Philip Andrews finally attempted to salvage his reputation. Mrs. Jackson, I want to apologize for my comments earlier. I didn't understand the situation. Did you need to understand the situation to recognize that slapping a mother holding an infant was wrong? Mr. Andrews? Gabby asked her question, hanging in the air unanswered. His face flushed red with shame. The brutal simplicity of her question revealed the moral bankruptcy of his position. Amanda Whitfield, who had remained silent during the discrimination, but now regretted it, leaned forward. I should have said something. I saw what was happening and stayed quiet. Gabby's response was thoughtful. Silence is how these systems perpetuate, Ms. Whitfield. Not just through people who act badly, but through those who see and remain silent. Her words resonated beyond Amanda to everyone listening and to the tens of thousands watching online. This wasn't just about one flight attendant's actions, but about the collective compliance that enabled discrimination. Throughout the cabin, passengers were processing their own roles in what had unfolded, some as active participants, others as silent witnesses, all now implicated in the public record of the incident. The cabin had become a stage for a masterclass in accountability, with every word, every reaction, every justification documented for a rapidly growing audience. Security Officer Foster spoke into her radio, updating Central Command about the evolving situation. Command, this is Foster on 583. Situation classified as corporate intervention. Security response, standing down. Repeat, standing down. The radio crackled back. Copy that, Foster. Be advised, airport director en route to gate. FAA representatives notified and responding. Media gathering at terminal. The ripple effects were expanding beyond the aircraft. What had started as a routine problem, passenger removal, was transforming into a national news story with regulatory implications. Rebecca Wilson stood frozen near the galley, her uniform suddenly feeling like a target rather than a symbol of authority. Captain Hernandez had retreated to the cockpit, ostensibly to brief First Officer Ramirez, but everyone knew he was hiding from the cameras, still documenting every moment. Gabby's mind flashed back to another defining moment, the day she found out she was pregnant with Amara. She and Dominic had made a pact that day. Our daughter will never see us accept disrespect, she had promised, hands resting on her still flat stomach. Not because we're privileged, but because dignity is a right, not a privilege. Dominic had kissed her forehead gently. And we'll use whatever platform we have to ensure others receive the same dignity. That promise had shaped their approach to parenting, to business, and to moments exactly like this one. Martin Reynolds had gained direct access to Horizon Airways' corporate communications team, who were desperately trying to get ahead of the story. His latest update revealed the behind-the-scenes scramble. Horizon Airways corporate calling emergency board meeting. Chief counsel en route to airport. FAA compliance officers reviewing footage. This incident has triggered protocols typically reserved for major safety violations. Sophia's TikTok had become a national phenomenon. News organizations were broadcasting her footage with banners reading "Breaking Airline CEO's wife assaulted by crew, live aftermath unfolding." Comments were flooding in faster than she could process. This is corporate accountability, like I've never seen. That baby hasn't made a sound this entire time. Look at the mom's face, she knew this would happen. Everyone who supported that flight attendant is getting dragged online. Don't forget to like and share. If you think this is justice. Officer Rodriguez approached Gabby again, his demeanor completely transformed from authority figure to respectful service. Mrs. Jackson is there. Anything you or your daughter need while we wait for Mr. Jackson to arrive. The simple question, offering help rather than demanding compliance, illustrated how quickly the power dynamic had shifted. We're fine, thank you, Gabby replied with a gentle smile. But I appreciate you asking. Throughout the cabin, passengers who had been vocal in supporting Rebecca's actions now sat in uncomfortable silence, the reality of their complicity setting in. Several were frantically searching their own social media posts, trying to delete evidence of their approval of discrimination. Amanda Whitfield, the young professional who had remained silent during the confrontation, approached Gabby hesitantly. Mrs. Jackson, I want to apologize for not speaking up. I saw what was happening and knew it was wrong, but I didn't say anything. Gabby's response was thoughtful. That's how these systems perpetuate, Ms. Whitfield. Not just through people who act badly, but through those who see and remain silent. The lesson landed with impact not just for Amanda, but for everyone listening and for the tens of thousands watching online. A young mother from economy class had made her way to first class after hearing about the incident. She approached Gabby with emotion in her eyes. Thank you for standing up for all of us who've been shamed for traveling with children. You've changed something important today. The connection across experiences linking individual accountability to collective impact demonstrated why the incident had resonated so powerfully with viewers. Gabby's response acknowledged the shared stake in the outcome. This isn't just about one flight or one airline. It's about dignity for all families traveling everywhere. Her words carried the weight of a mission statement, concise, powerful, and universally relevant. Throughout the terminal, Horizon Airways staff were processing the implications for their own work. Flight attendants gathered around phones, watching the live streams, discussing how this incident would change their daily practices. It's not about being afraid of consequences, one veteran flight attendant commented to her colleagues. It's about having clear standards that protect everyone, passengers and crew alike. The insightful interpretation. Seeing accountability as clarification rather than constraint represented the most productive response to systematic reform. As Gabby sat quietly with sleeping Amara, she hummed a soft lullaby, the same melody her grandmother had sung to her mother to her, and now she to her daughter. The gentle sound carried across the tense cabin, a reminder of the human continuity that transcended this single incident. Outside the airport activity had increased dramatically. Through the windows, passengers could see news vans arriving, airport officials gathering, and an executive motorcade approaching the terminal. The corporate response was moving faster than anyone had anticipated, demonstrating just how seriously Horizon Airways was taking the incident. This wasn't damage control. This was crisis management at the highest level. Officer Foster received another radio update. Foster, be advised, FAA representatives are requesting all security footage. Preserve all evidence. The regulatory implications were expanding by the minute. What had started as a passenger removal was now triggering federal oversight mechanisms typically reserved for serious safety violations. Through it all, baby Amara slept peacefully in her mother's arms, the most compelling evidence that there had never been a legitimate disruption. The aircraft door opened again, revealing the airport director flanked by two federal aviation officials in formal uniform. Their presence elevated the situation from corporate incident to regulatory event. The TikTok viewership jumped to 60,000 as word spread that federal authorities were involved. Gabby checked her watch. Dominic will be here in 3 minutes. The timestamp wasn't just information, it was a countdown to accountability that had everyone in the cabin holding their breath. Rebecca Wilson had retreated to the forward galley, physically distancing herself from the scene of her career-ending mistake. Captain Hernandez remained in the cockpit communicating with flight operations about the unprecedented situation. The airport director approached Gabby with careful respect. Mrs. Jackson, I'm Thomas Rivera, DFW Airport Director. On behalf of the Airport Authority, I want to express our deep concern about the incident that occurred. His careful phrasing acknowledging the incident without specifying blame reflected the political navigation already underway. Gabby nodded acknowledgement, but didn't engage further. The time for institutional statements would come later. This moment belonged to direct accountability. Martin Reynolds had gained access to the Horizon Airways internal message board through an anonymous source. His latest update revealed the corporate earthquake in progress. Internal Horizon. Airways communication in chaos. Regional directors demanding information. Legal department issuing emergency non-disclosure directives. HR preparing termination documentation. This is corporate crisis response at unprecedented speed. Throughout the cabin, passenger dynamics continued to evolve. Those who had supported Rebecca's actions now avoided eye contact with cameras. Those who had felt uncomfortable but remained silent were processing their complicity. A microcosm of societal response to injustice was playing out in real time. Sophia's TikTok viewership had attracted celebrity attention. Major influencers were sharing her stream, amplifying the audience exponentially. News organizations had picked up the feed, broadcasting it nationwide with commentary from aviation experts and civil rights attorneys. This incident exemplifies how discrimination functions in everyday spaces, commented a civil rights attorney on CNN. The assumption about who belongs in premium spaces, the immediate escalation to physical force, and the expectation of passenger compliance, regardless of crew misconduct. Officer Rodriguez received a radio update that made him straighten immediately. Command to all security personnel on 583 Horizon Airways CEO has entered the terminal. ETA to aircraft 2 minutes. Prepare for executive arrival. The countdown was accelerating. Rebecca overheard the radio communication and visibly trembled. Captain Hernandez emerged from the cockpit, attempting to regain some authority over the situation, but it was far too late. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice lacking its former confidence. "We apologize for the delay, and will be—" Captain Hernandez Dominic's voice interrupted through the phone speaker. "You've been relieved of command authority for this aircraft. Please refrain from further announcements." The public countermanding of a captain's authority, unheard of in commercial aviation, sent shockwaves through industry professionals watching the live stream. Martin Reynolds's aviation forum crashed again from traffic volume as pilots and crew members across the country logged in to witness the unprecedented event. Gabby addressed the cabin directly, her voice calm but carrying. "I want to thank those of you who are documenting this moment. What you're witnessing isn't just about one flight or one crew. It's about systems that enable discrimination and the accountability needed to transform them." Her framing shifted the narrative from individual misconduct to institutional responsibility, a crucial distinction that industry observers noted immediately. The FAA representatives were conferring quietly, their expressions grave. The regulatory implications were expanding as they witnessed the aftermath of crew misconduct firsthand. Philip Andrews attempted to rehabilitate his image with a loud apology. "Mrs. Jackson, I want everyone to hear that I deeply regret my comments earlier. Had I known who you were—" "That's exactly the problem, Mr. Andrews," Gabby interrupted gently. "Respect shouldn't depend on who someone is. It should be the baseline for how we treat everyone." The lesson landed with visible impact, not just on Andrews, but on everyone listening and the hundreds of thousands now watching online. Officer Foster's radio crackled again. "All personnel be advised, executive party has entered jet bridge. Arrival imminent." Rebecca made one final desperate appeal. "Mrs. Jackson, please. I made a terrible mistake, but my entire career shouldn't end because of one bad day." Gabby's response was measured but firm. "Ms. Wilson, this wasn't just one bad day. The ease with which you resorted to physical assault suggests a pattern, not an aberration. That's what accountability addresses: patterns, not isolated incidents." The insight cut through typical crisis management rhetoric, focusing on the underlying behaviors rather than the singular event. Martin Reynolds posted his most significant update yet. FAA representatives confirming this incident triggers mandatory review of Horizon Airways crew training protocols, discrimination prevention systems, and passenger protection policies. Regulatory impact extends beyond individual employment to carrier certification requirements. The stakes had expanded beyond careers to the fundamental operating authorities of the airline itself. Through the windows, passengers could see a group of suited executives approaching rapidly. The moment of direct accountability was seconds away. Sophia whispered to her TikTok audience, now exceeding 100,000 viewers. "The CEO is about to board the plane. This is history happening right now. If you just joined, like and share this unprecedented moment." The cabin fell completely silent as footsteps approached the aircraft door. Even baby Amara seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, her eyes opening to watch the unfolding scene. The aircraft door opened, revealing Dominic Jackson, tall, distinguished, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that conveyed both corporate authority and controlled fury. Behind him stood a team of executives, legal counsel, and corporate security. His eyes found Gabby, immediately softening for just a moment before hardening again as he surveyed the cabin, taking in Rebecca's trembling form, Hernandez's failed attempt at authority, and the passengers who had enabled the discrimination against his family. "1 minute," Gabby said quietly, checking her watch one final time. The countdown had reached 0. Accountability had arrived. "Hi, love," Gabby had said softly into the phone. "I'm having some trouble on your airline." The moment those words left her lips, the power dynamic in the cabin had begun its seismic shift. Now, as Dominic Jackson stood in the aircraft doorway, that shift completed its transformation. The cabin remained absolutely silent as Dominic walked directly to Gabby and Amara, ignoring everyone else. He kissed his wife's forehead gently, then their daughter's, before turning to face the cabin with an expression of controlled fury. "My name is Dominic Jackson. I am the Chief Executive Officer and majority shareholder of Horizon Airways. What happened on this aircraft today represents the absolute failure of everything we claim to stand for as a company." His voice wasn't raised, but it carried the unmistakable weight of absolute authority. Rebecca Wilson seemed to physically shrink, backing against the galley wall. Captain Hernandez stood frozen gold stripes, suddenly looking like targets on his shoulders. The TikTok live stream exploded past 200,000 viewers as Sophia's hands trembled with the responsibility of documenting this historic moment. Comments were flooding in so quickly they blurred on the screen. "CEO is here. Justice is about to be served. Corporate accountability in real time. This is the most satisfying thing I've ever watched. Like and share this incredible moment of justice." Martin Reynolds typed frantically his aviation industry blog, becoming the go-to source for professionals trying to understand the unprecedented situation. Horizon Airways CEO Dominic Jackson has boarded Flight 583 following the physical assault of his wife by crew members. FAA representatives on scene. Regulatory and corporate response unfolding simultaneously. Industry transformation likely. Dominic turned to address Officer Rodriguez and Foster directly. "Officers, I want to be clear that you were responding to crew misinformation. Your conduct will be reviewed separately with that context in mind." The distinction was important, acknowledging the systemic failures that had placed the security officers in an impossible position while still ensuring comprehensive accountability. Rebecca finally found her voice, though it trembled uncontrollably. "Mr. Jackson, I can explain." "Ms. Wilson." Dominic interrupted, his tone glacial. "There is no explanation for physically striking a passenger holding an infant." None. The simplicity of the statement silenced her completely. There was no corporate doublespeak, no ambiguity, just the clear articulation of an unacceptable boundary that had been crossed. Captain Hernandez attempted a more strategic approach. "Sir, with all due respect to your position during boarding procedures, the captain maintains operational authority under federal aviation regulation." "Captain Hernandez." Dominic cut him off. "Does any federal aviation regulation authorize your crew to physically assault passengers?" The direct question hung in the air unanswered, because both men knew no such regulation existed. Dominic addressed the cabin at large, his voice steady but intense. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize that you've been delayed and that you've witnessed this situation. This is not what Horizon Airways stands for, and I take personal responsibility for the culture that allowed it to happen." The accountability was striking, not deflecting blame, but accepting institutional responsibility, even while addressing individual misconduct. One of the executives behind Dominic stepped forward, handing him a tablet. He reviewed it briefly before looking up. "Ms. Wilson, this isn't your first incident involving passengers of color. Our records show 3 previous complaints that were addressed through sensitivity training that you clearly disregarded entirely. The revelation that this was a pattern rather than an isolated incident shifted the narrative decisively. This wasn't about one bad day or a single mistake. This was about systemic behavior finally exposed." Rebecca's desperate defense crumbled entirely. She began sobbing, her uniform suddenly seeming like a costume rather than a symbol of authority. Dominic turned to the FAA representatives observing the situation. "Gentlemen, Horizon Airways will cooperate fully with any regulatory review this incident triggers. We welcome the oversight and the opportunity to transform our practices." The professional handling of regulatory relationships, even in the midst of personal fury, demonstrated why Dominic had risen to his position of leadership. Sophia narrated quietly to her now 250,000 viewers. "The CEO is handling this like a masterclass in accountability. He's not just firing people, he's addressing the whole system. Don't forget to like and share this unprecedented moment." Dominic knelt beside Gabby and Amara, his public authority momentarily giving way to personal concern. "Are you both truly all right?" "We're fine," Gabby assured him. "This went exactly as we anticipated. Though I didn't expect the physical assault, the exchange captured on hundreds of phones revealed another dimension to the unfolding story. This hadn't been a random incident. It had been a deliberate assessment of how the airline treated passengers who didn't fit preconceived notions of first class. Martin Reynolds caught the implication immediately. Breaking evidence suggests CEO and wife were conducting undercover assessment of crew practices. Revolutionary approach to corporate accountability that caught discrimination in action. The strategic brilliance of the approach was becoming clear to industry observers. Rather than relying on customer complaints that could be dismissed or settled quietly, the CEO had witnessed discrimination against his own family, creating irrefutable evidence that demanded response. Dominic stood again, addressing the crew and passengers with renewed focus. What happens next will transform not just this flight, not just this airline, but the standards to which the entire industry is held. The bold declaration sent ripples through aviation professionals watching the live stream. This wasn't just crisis management. This was the announcement of industry-wide reform, triggered by a single, unacceptable moment. Rebecca made one final desperate appeal. "Please, Mr. Jackson, I have children at home, a mortgage. This job is everything to me." Dominic's response was measured but unyielding. "Ms. Wilson, my wife had our child in her arms when you struck her. Your appeal to your own children while disregarding the safety of mine is precisely the disconnect that requires accountability." The clarity of the response, connecting personal appeals to personal actions, silenced further pleas. Throughout the cabin, passengers who had supported Rebecca's actions now sat in uncomfortable silence, the public nature of their complicity becoming increasingly apparent as the live stream viewership topped 300,000. Dominic turned back to Gabby. "The board has convened an emergency session. Are you ready to proceed with the next phase?" "Absolutely," she replied calmly. "This is why we're here." The exchange confirmed what industry observers had begun to suspect. This wasn't just responsive accountability, but part of a deliberate strategy to transform airline culture from the inside out. The moment that had begun with a shocking phone call, "Hi, love, I'm having some trouble on your airline," had evolved into something far more significant. The public launch of a corporate revolution, witnessed by hundreds of thousands in real time. Dominic addressed the cabin one final time before focusing on individual accountability. "What you're witnessing today isn't just about one crew or one flight. It's about transforming an industry that has normalized discrimination under the guise of passenger management. That transformation begins here now on this aircraft." His words weren't just addressing the immediate situation, but announcing a fundamental shift in how commercial aviation would approach passenger dignity, a declaration that would reverberate across the entire industry. 5 years after the incident on Flight 583, a young mother boarded a Horizon Airways flight with her twin toddlers. As she settled into her first-class seat, a flight attendant approached with a warm smile. "Welcome aboard," she said, kneeling to eye level with the children. "I'm Emily, and I'll be helping make your journey comfortable today. We have activity packs for the little ones, and I can bring pillows to help them get settled." The simple interaction, offering help before assuming disruption, represented the most profound legacy of the Jackson Protocol, changing not just what happened in commercial cabins, but how it happened and why. Throughout the industry, the Jackson Standard had become shorthand for passenger dignity across commercial environments. New crew members learned about the historic incident during their very first training module, understanding how one moment of accountability had transformed an entire industry's approach to passenger interaction. As Gabby and Dominic Jackson continued their work through the Dignity Takes Flight Foundation, they remained focused not on past achievement, but on future progress. The true measure of their impact wasn't just what had changed, but what would never happen again. Mothers traveling without fear of judgment, passengers accessing services without facing suspicion, crew members interacting with clarity rather than bias. The legacy lived not in awards or recognition, but in thousands of daily interactions where dignity had replaced discrimination as the defining characteristic of commercial passenger experiences, proving that accountability, when done right, creates transformation that endures. If this powerful story resonated with you, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to see it. Your engagement helps spread the message that accountability matters and real change is possible. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that highlight the transformation that happens when dignity meets determination. Together, we can create spaces where everyone is treated with the respect they deserve, regardless of appearance or circumstance. Hit that notification bell now to join our community dedicated to sharing stories that change not just moments, but entire systems.